I'm Ashley Massengale, and this is my story. I remember from a young age going to a little Baptist church with my grandparents where I was saved, but I never learned what a relationship with God looked like, and I didn't have many teachers to learn from in childhood. I graduated high school and began navigating life choices with no biblical compass. I was set up on a blind date and met Brian at 20. We dated on and off until we found out we were pregnant and decided to give our relationship a real go and raise a baby together. I decided for us that we needed to be married to have that baby together, so Brian proposed, and 1 week later, we married. To say our marriage started off rocky would be a great understatement. We were newly married, had our first baby girl, Macy, within a month, and life was just happening. God was not the center of our lives, nor were we seeking him. About 6 months after marrying, Brian told me he had some struggles we needed to address, so we started marriage therapy where we received an invite to SouthCrest. We never sought God in our relationship, and we were running on empty, so we decided to give it a try. The foundation that began being built was exactly what would carry me through the next few years while I was fighting with everything for my marriage and my husband, yet only halfway locking arms with God. I would call on him in the tough times, but otherwise, I was in control. In the midst of this fight, we welcomed Bria and Carly into our family. However, I was basically a single mom. My relationship with God became one of desperation. The enemy was working overtime, and before I realized it, I allowed him to create an image of my husband in my mind that I was no longer in love with. There were influences telling me it wasn't worth it, I deserved better, and I began to believe them. I continued calling out to God. However, now I found myself asking him if I could leave my marriage. But the Lord stood with me and gave me the strength to endure. After years of struggling on his own, Brian decided for himself that his life was out of control and checked himself into treatment. He surrendered to God's will and was released from the stronghold that had choked the life out of him, our marriage, me, and our kids. God was working in ways I never dreamed possible as restoration began happening in my marriage and my family. But the enemy immediately took action, trying to distract us from God's goodness as I experienced my first miscarriage. But God continued trying to show me he was in control, and it was already written, because by October we were pregnant again. We welcomed our fourth baby girl, Aria, and I cried. I wish I could say these were joyous tears that mamas cry when they see their newborn babies for the first time, but they weren't. Secretly, I was still trying to rewrite my story and control the outcome, and I wanted my boy. I even said to Brian, it wasn't supposed to be this way, but he reassured me it was absolutely supposed to be this way. Life outside of me was so beautiful. We were happier than ever. Brian was experiencing growth in ways I had never thought possible or dreamed of. My girls were all happy and healthy. I was chugging along, building a business, being a mom, and loving my marriage in a way I never knew was possible. My battle for control was at its peak when I experienced 2 more miscarriages, the second being twins. I had hit my all-time low. After losing the twins, I sat in the most vulnerable place I had ever been with the Lord, seeking God and trusting in him and his divine timing. I knew the verse that he would never leave me nor forsake me, but he sure didn't seem close. We were still coming to SouthCrest sporadically, and I even attended a women's life group on Wednesday nights, but I kept my distance from true connections. I began therapy to process the 4 babies I had lost and try to navigate the idea of being complete with the 4 that I have here. It was in therapy that God began a work in me. I began seeing where I had taken the pencil from God, where I had all along been bargaining by rewriting his story. I began to experience God in a much deeper way, connecting to him and feeling his presence. One Sunday morning, in a moment of desperation, I whispered to him, God, if you are near to the brokenhearted, be near to me. I need a soul revival. I'm tired and I don't want to write the story anymore. His response was so clear to me. Ashley, my child, it's already written. You only need to live it, not write it. I gave God the pencil back that day and chose to live and surrender to his will for my life. No more rewriting the story. No more bargaining. No more placing idols before him, and that meant a boy. Walking closer with him and surrendering my control for his will has allowed me to become a woman I never knew I was capable of. I no longer wish to battle God for control over my life. Now when I find myself battling with control, I remember it's already written and the details are written as well. He wrote my story years ago to include a fifth girl that we will welcome in a few weeks. And today I can confidently say this is absolutely the way it's supposed to be because it was already written. My life today is so much more beautiful than I could have written it. Our home has a firm foundation, and Brian and I are more in love than ever. We are leaning into the story that God has written instead of battling for control to rewrite the details. In September, he and I will celebrate 16 years together and welcome our fifth baby girl. If I had to title my testimony, it would be, It's Already Written. I'm a visual learner, and I like to paint a picture with words, so follow me here. God has written our story even before we were born. Our parents unknowingly take a pencil from God and start rewriting it with the choices that they make for us while raising us. When we're old enough, we go off on our own, and the pencil gets handed over to us as individuals to begin writing, and off we go. Did you see what I did there? I thought I was supposed to write my story. I thought God was there only in times of need. So in early adulthood, I was rewriting the story for my own desires. But all along, I was being taught that God had the story written, and maybe I should lean into him for more understanding and the peace I was looking for. Through the struggles in my marriage and the loss of my babies and my precious therapist, who is a saint for putting up with my crazy, I learned I don't want the pencil anymore. The pencil was never mine anyway. My story was already written in pen by the author. So next time you're up against anything that has your soul restless, pause and remember, it's already written down to the details, just as the Bible tells us in Psalms 139:16. All the details planned for me were written in your book before even one came to pass. Thank you for letting me share.